Okay, so moving on to Act 1, Scene 4. In this scene, we have Romeo, Benvolio, and a character named Mercutio, who is also Romeo and Benvolio's good friend and a kinsman of the prince. They're all wearing masks on their way to the feast. We remember that the Capulet feast that is going on is a masquerade ball, so everybody attending will wear masks. Now the issue is that Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio are not welcome at this feast. We know that. Romeo's is a Montague, and he is not welcome in that household. However, when Romeo and Benvolio bumped into Peter, the servant of Capulet, and they saw the names of the people that are attending the feast, Romeo really wanted to go because he saw Rosaline's name on there. So Romeo really wants to go to see Rosaline. Benvolio wants Romeo to go because he thinks it's a great opportunity for him to see other women there and to get his mind off of Rosaline because she should be in the past. So, what do we know about Mercutio here? Well, he mocks Romeo about his romantic pretensions, okay, meaning that he kind of sees love in a very different point of view, and we'll go over that in the next slide. He also delivers a very infamous Queen Mab speech in which he suggests a very dark view of mankind. So we'll go over that a little more detail in the next slide. And finally, to end the summary, the scene ends with Romeo's sense of foreboding. Okay, so he fears something really bad will happen from this night. Okay, he doesn't have a very good feeling about it. However, they all decide to go anyways, and we will see that in the next scene. So, important things to note from this scene. We have Mercutio's view on love. So, a couple of characteristics from Mercutio. He contrasts the very love-struck Romeo and the very peaceful Benvolio. He's very witty and quick-tempered, and he says what's on his mind. We also learn that Mercutio is an anti-romantic, meaning that for him, love is only a physical pursuit. And we see that through the line when he says, if love be rough with you, be rough with love. Prick love for pricking and you beat love down. Okay, so the idea that love is only physical, which really contrasts to and juxtaposes against Romeo's view of love. Now, the theme of fate is evident in this scene through the conversation between Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio. Now, Romeo's final speech anticipates his meeting with Juliet, because we know they're going to meet eventually. We all know the story. And this creates an atmosphere of impending doom, meaning that if you talk about the last bullet point here, Romeo says there's some consequence hanging in the stars, meaning that something bad is going to happen. He doesn't have a good feeling about this. And that is very important, this type of imagery, because in the prologue before scene 1, Romeo and Juliet were characterized as star-crossed lovers. So when he says some consequences hanging in the stars, it hints at the fact that there is some consequence that is going to kind of get the ball rolling if Romeo and Juliet do meet eventually. Now, important lines for you to jot down. Line 29, I thought that it was very important that the mask that Mercutio puts on represents the idea that you're hiding your true self. And they all are in a sense, because they're going someplace that they're not supposed to be. Okay, so the idea that you're pretending to be someone you're not. And they all are doing that at the Capulet feast. Also, I mentioned briefly Mercutio's Queen Mab speech. Now, we need some context on who Queen Mab is. And this was a fantastical creature that Shakespeare used often in a lot of his works. Now, the idea of Queen Mab is that she is said to be someone who brings dreams to people, okay, and has them dream about what torments them during the day. Okay, so whatever kind of your fears are that you live through during the day, she kind of plants them in your mind and makes sure that you dream about them at night. So if we're foreshadowing what this might mean for Romeo, we know that what torments him so far throughout the play is love. So he's hinting at the fact that only something bad can come of this, and something that torments him may cause more trouble for him in the future. So that is Act 1, Scene 4. We are moving on to Act 1, Scene 5 now. Okay, so Act 1, Scene 5. Of course, following the succession of the previous scene, we are at the Capulet feast finally. The setting is the Capulet house. Just to a brief summary, first, Romeo sees Juliet and falls in love with her instantly, which is the most important part of this scene. He declares that he has never loved until that moment, which is significant because if we remember from even the first scene of the play, he claimed that he was head over heels in love with a woman named Rosaline. And that's even why he went to the Capulet feast, because he heard Rosaline was going to be there. However, now that he has seen Juliet, he forgets about her instantly. Tybalt, who we met in the feud, or the brawl, at the beginning of the play, he recognizes Romeo's voice and swears he will avenge this insult. So how dare a Montague come into a Capulet house and try to disguise himself? However, he is allowed to stay because Lord Capulet doesn't want to kind of ruin the festivities and claims Romeo has a fair reputation throughout Verona. Now, Romeo and Juliet kiss, confirming their reciprocated feelings of love. I believe they actually kiss twice. However, at the end of the scene, they discover that they are from opposing households and recognize the grave consequences of their love because, of course, a Capulet and a Montague together will only cause problems between an already feuding situation between the Montagues and the Capulets. Now, a major theme that I want you to focus on through this scene is the idea of love or lust. Now, Romeo now believes that he can distinguish between the artificial feelings for Rosaline, and now he claims he has genuine feelings for Juliet. He says, "Did my heart love till now, forswear its sight, for I never saw true beauty till this night." And you'll notice there's slashes there, and that's to indicate new lines. So whenever you're citing something and you want to distinguish that a new line has started, you just put that slash there, and that's what does it. Now, what Romeo is saying in this is that before he saw Juliet, he never knew what true love was. So Rosaline is in the past. He claims he has never felt love before like this, or never felt love at all, because of his feelings in that moment for Juliet. So we want to ask ourselves the question, is love at first sight possible? Or is what Romeo and Juliet are feeling through this scene, is it love or is it lust? And that's something that maybe we could explore in your essay topic moving forward. Now, it's really important when we are looking at specific scenes to look at the language that's being used by Shakespeare. Now, the imagery that Romeo uses to describe Juliet is often bright, and he often sees her as a source of light against the darkness. He says, "She doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night." So what she does for Romeo is that she offers hope in a very dark world around him. We know from the first scene that Romeo sought sanctuary in the dark when he was upset. He locked himself away in his room and shut the windows to create an artificial night. And that was because of Rosaline. So what Juliet does for Romeo is when they meet, she really transports him from a dark place into some sort of light. So she's a beacon to him and for him. So there is a lot of conflict throughout this scene. Now, the threat of violence immediately interrupts the romantic atmosphere of the meeting between Romeo and Juliet, and that is caused because of Tybalt. We know that Tybalt is a very aggressive and ill-tempered person from the fight in scene 1. and how he was calling Benvolio a coward, and now he calls out Romeo and calls for basically his death through this scene. He wants to kill him then and there, but he is forced to endure Romeo's presence because Lord Capulet says so. Since we do know the characteristics of Tybalt, we will see later if he can let go of this grudge that he has for Romeo, or if he will act upon it. So that is everything for Act 1. I want you to fill out your act chart in full and begin reading Act 2. Make sure you pay attention to the Google Classroom in order to keep up with all the deadlines for your reading. You will need to submit either your Act 1 or Act 2 chart for homework completion, so I can assure that you are completing all the work to date. Anyways, thank you, and thank you for working hard.